Welcome back to Martins and More. My name's Maury Rutch.
And I'm Spoon Phillips.
And today's episode is brought to you by our Patreon members. Join our growing community for early access to every episode, exclusive video versions of the podcast, behind-the-scenes footage, full-length product demos, and more. We appreciate you. What's going on today, Spoon?
Well, it's a rather scary topic today for certain people, and I can certainly relate. So, but I think I can steel my nerves to get through it and get out in this beautiful July day.
Well, since it is really beautiful out and this is a very scary topic, should we just shelve this whole thing until October?
Oh, that's a very interesting thing. Maybe we can have a part 2, a Halloween episode about it. But but yes, today's topic comes from one of our favorite loyal listeners who wrote in asking about techniques to deal with stage fright, or how do you get over stage fright, and when it comes to playing guitar in front of other people. And all I can say to them immediately is, you are certainly not alone there, and there are zillions of people who have had to deal with that same phenomenal experience.
Can I be honest? I know somebody who has it right now. No, not you. I definitely can relate, because as recently as all the time, and the question you just brought up, how do you get over stage fright? I want to change that. Do you get over stage fright? Does stage fright go away? Does stage fright get in control? And why not, peel back the curtain? We're not going to sit here, at least I'm not going to sit here and tell you what other people go through and what I've conquered years ago, and it's no problem at all. I still get, you might call it butterflies, you might call it anxiety. Ironically, just off air, we were talking briefly, I'm more comfortable in the role I'm playing now, where I'm either, on a podcast, really when I'm playing guitar, either on our YouTube programs or in real life, I'm more comfortable singing and playing guitar than talking after the song's over. And I don't want to say I've always been that way, because from birth until I was 14 years old, I didn't play guitar and I didn't sing. So I must have been more comfortable talking, because that's all I did. As I became a guitar player and became a guitar player who sings and plays music, I find it much more comfortable, or much less anxious, to play and sing a song than to talk to an audience or a crowd. Maybe not one-on-one with somebody, but when it comes time to play a song, finish it, and then talk to the audience, I am a little bit more apprehensive to address them with speaking than I am with playing. And it hasn't been consistently bad all my life, and I think it becomes a little bit easier as you go through it. But I've been playing guitar and singing since the mid-'80s or late 80s. It's kind of a twofold answer. I feel a lot more comfortable now than I did back then, but it hasn't been a complete steady progression. I don't feel more confident this year than I did last year, and going back 2 years. I still have months, weeks, or performances where I'm not entirely feeling like a confident speaker. And I know stage fright can be more than one thing. And before the program's over, I want to ask you, Spoon, how it even applies to acting and being on stage where you're not singing or speaking, you're acting. Being the subject that people are looking at and having to talk to them, address them, or sing to them, I would say you begin to control it more than you get over it. And I'd love to hear if you have an example of the opposite, but I'm not sure it's something that ever gets turned off.
Well, I think it can be a very personal thing. I think that just about anybody can tell you, anybody that's a full-time or professional performer, they can tell you that it's a natural occurrence, and it's really something. Somebody once said, when you run into these kind of problems, they weren't speaking about stage fright specifically, saying that when you run into these problems, you have the option of putting them in your trunk and letting them slow you down and hold you back, or putting them in your gas tank and using it as fuel to move you forward. And there are people that know how to channel nervous energy, and people that have a hard time learning how to do that. Now, there's multiple kinds of stage fright. There's multiple things going on when it comes to what people call stage fright. So that can make different experiences unique to the time and place and unique to the person. But for the most part, we're going to focus mainly on people picking up their guitar and playing a song and singing in front of people. And I used to call it hiding behind the guitar when I was younger. That for some reason I had an easier time playing my guitar, standing up in front of a bunch of strangers than I did doing what you talked about, the public speaking. And I actually, I was like on the speech team in high school and went to speech tournaments and those sorts of things. So sometimes it would strike and sometimes it wouldn't. When I started out acting in plays and stuff, as a kid, I think maybe it was so much fun, it didn't occur to me. I was fearless like a lot of children can be. And it's interesting that by the time I got at university and acting school, then it started happening. And I think for a lot of people, we can't help whether you're talking public speaking or performing with a guitar, because we've all known people who are very proficient guitarists, or it's happened to all of us that you have it down cold, you rehearsed it, you could play it in your sleep, but the moment you're on stage at Martin's on Main in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, or at the local open mic, you're all thumbs, and it just doesn't, and the lead lick you always pull off, you don't pull off, and all that stuff. First of all, those kind of gaffes are natural. We've seen everybody do it, including professionals on stage, and it goes by in an instant, and so part of it is clinging to those kind of things and becoming distracted by it. And so that's one of the things that leads to it and how it amplifies. Because there are people, and I was one of them, that at times had suffered full-blown panic attack symptoms on stage in front of an audience. And that's one of the reasons I shifted into directing from acting, because I learned, first of all, I was not going to be the Hamlet of my generation. But I also learned that as a director, I had an actor's mind. And once I learned the difference between being an actor and being a director, I knew that I could make somebody else who would be a much better Hamlet than I was, be a much better Hamlet than they would have been without me. And so I got out of acting because I would have these out of the blue, all the way through rehearsal, loved being in rehearsal hall with actors, loved working it all out, loved connecting with the character emotionally, all that stuff. But in front of an audience, all of a sudden it would happen. So jumping ahead, I became a director, went to graduate school for directing. I was directing plays in New York City after a big production here in New York City that had a lot of actors in it, Lanford Wilson's Ballman Gilead. As a gift, as an opening night gift, an actress gave me a book called Stage Fright that was written by a psychologist about stage fright. And she wanted to give it to me because she said that I had given her back her confidence, and that I had allowed her to get back into acting because she had become full of self-doubts about her ability. And I'm bringing that up because it applies to what we're talking about with music. Is they talked about some of the causes of stage fright, and one of them is called separation anxiety. And it comes from stepping out on stage and being from an audience, and it still happens to me when I'm playing in a new venue for the first time. And so the lights are different, and the sound that you hear when you're on stage is different, and all of these things are going on, all the environmental stimulus is pouring in, and that stimuli bombards your brain, and it just distracts you, and that makes you make that first flub. And then you step outside of yourself because you're paying more attention to the flub that happened than what you're supposed to be doing next. And then that stuff can steamroll. And it's a much bigger deal to you than it is to anybody else. Every person out in that audience is there to have a good time and enjoy what you're doing, and they want to see you succeed. Nobody's out there just looking for you to screw up something and say, Maury screwed up, isn't that funny? and so we are our own worst critics when it comes to those sorts of things, and that's part of it. Another part of it is more personal and not we're dignified people, and nobody wants to make a fool of themselves, but they particularly don't want to make a fool of themselves in front of people that they like and whose opinion matters to them. And so that's how people, even at a cocktail party or sitting around in somebody's living room when it's suddenly time to perform, how they can get the jitters and their voice will start to quiver. And we're talking about people who stand in pulpits and give sermons and stand in front of juries and give closing statements and all of that. But when it comes to playing guitar or singing a song in front of their friends, or in front of the times they were brave enough to get in front of an audience they don't know, that all goes out the window. And I find it fascinating. I have a great deal of empathy and sympathy because I've been there. And but there are certain things you can do, particularly when you're just starting out. So let's go back to you, though, in your personal experience. When you first would get that, you get distracted, you're on stage, you can't concentrate, you're in a new place, lots of unusual noise, people you don't know, a lot of people talking or aren't paying attention to you, which is distracting, which is sometimes not as unnerving as... I used to like being in a busy, crowded room when I was playing, as opposed to the dead silence where everybody's sitting there watching every move you make. There's a sense of empowerment about that. It can be enjoyable, but at the same time, it can be daunting if you're not used to it. So, I don't know if you can even explain how you came about conquering that or getting over it, but can you at least talk a little bit about those experiences and how it transitioned into not really something you think about now that you gig several times a month?
I can, and I want to put a little bit of that on its ear. You mentioned about, how it's even more, and I don't put words in your mouth, but I think you said it could be even more nerve-wracking in front of a lot of people you don't know. Those of you watching the YouTube version of this podcast, let me know in the comments, are you more intimidated or anxious around people you don't know or people you know? I don't necessarily feel like it's an advantage to know that everybody in the audience knows you. And there are times I'll play a gig locally and then see somebody that was there a few days later. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I want to be under the microscope the next day too, because I would see people, oh, you sounded really good. Okay, if I remember, I wonder if they're there for that one song that I totally murdered. Yeah. And then you think about it, and then your mind can be dumb enough to think, They saw that song and they said I sound good. They must have been polite. And then you can start really playing games with your mind. Like, was he just saying that because you have to say that? You bump into somebody at the gas station. What are you going to say? It didn't sound good. And if you're insecure, whether it's a lifelong thing, a mood thing, maybe you're insecure today but not tomorrow. When somebody sees you in the audience, if you feel like you did a really great job versus an okay job, there might be something to think like, I'm never going to see that person again. If we would play a new place, I think my gut reaction would say, I want that to be the case, because you have two things can happen. You could really make a great impression, and then they're going to, leave the venue thinking that band was really good. Or if they saw a stinker, that's like, Spoon said, that's like a fleeting thing. If you make a flub, it's over as fast as it happened, unless they were like everyone else at the bar with their phones and YouTube, and a lot of things that you do are very visible a lot later. I think my opinion is if they know you in the audience, that's a little harder to get over the stage fright bug. And when I say it that way, I'm being very sincere. I've been playing, a long time, since the mid 80s at least. And I know I've become more comfortable over time, but that does not excuse or remove the opportunity for any day, whether it's tonight, we're going to play in Jim Thorpe. I won't tell you that I'm going to leave this podcast, leave work, and go into a gig in 2024 with no opportunity to be anxious. I mean, I'm not going to be nervous per se, but I won't start at 7 o'clock and finish at 10 with no opportunity to feel like it can happen at any minute. I'm in a lucky spot tonight because it's a 4-piece band, and whether I know it or not, I put it in my mind, everybody's watching those three guys. Nobody's watching me. And the times that it might flip where they did watch me for that part, I don't feel like I have to get everything right. I just have to get the most important things right more often than not, because I bet when I do the things I'm most proud of, that is when people are watching the other three, and that can be the reverse of psyching yourself out. It can really calm me down if I think they're watching Tim. If you have a guitar player that plays like him and you're doing something and you want to really wear your heart on your sleeve and be very, very confident, don't expect everybody's paying close attention to you anyway.
Well, that's certainly the case in the band situation. But here we are, two people who have performed in front of crowds large and small for decades, and we're still talking about screwing up and having nervous energy and all that stuff. That might be daunting then to somebody who's just trying to get out and play songs in front of people, to think that because that's part of it too. Lots of people, you've been practicing, you like this, you want to share your music, but the moment comes and it's suddenly your turn and you're seeing all these other people you feel are so much better than you are. First of all, I say almost every guitar player I've ever met is a better guitar player than they think they are. I mean, until you get up into Grammy winners and stuff like that, I think everybody has people that they say, I wish I could do that, what he does or what she does. And that's certainly not what's important when it comes to just wanting to enjoy playing music and sharing the music that you like with other people. I think one of the things that a lot of people will say, if you look up online, one of the main things they're going to say is get back in the batter's box. And, and the more you do it, after you get over that first one, you realize the ceiling didn't fall in and nobody has unfriended you or, in real life or on social media because you it didn't go exactly the way you wanted it to or whatever. Or even, I've seen people so nervous that they have to stop and take a breath. And I'm always, I think everybody in the audience is always happy when they start again and do the song and get through it. All it takes is that feeling of acceptance of your humanity and your imperfections when it comes to that sort of thing. Go a big way to making it easier. And I have a list here that I've compiled from various places. Like when I started talking about the book that I mentioned, the Stage Fright book, which is about actors. One of the things it said in it was that the great actors of classical tragedy from our era, all of them are famous for having stage fright. And I mean like serious stage fright. Laurence Olivier was famous for standing before the curtain opened. He would go out and stand center stage right at the curtain and mutter over and over, "You bastards, you bastards." Because he had this feeling that they came to see him fail, and he was going to go out there and he was going to kick their keisters. And that, like, he had to build every single time he went out there, he had to build up the confidence to do what he did. But like a lot of people will say, if you get to do a set, after you get by that first song or two, it gets much easier. And the same thing when you're an actor in a play. That opening night is always, full of nerves. But after you realize the rehearsal has done you good, and the more you know the material, the more you can go on to autopilot when you're getting distractions from the environment, or you're somebody laughs in the corner and you don't know if they're laughing at you or just laughing at their friend's joke, whatever, and you can get through on autopilot. But here's what some of the things they say is, you have to, particularly if you're in an open mic situation, watch your audience. Look at your audience, see them reacting to other people, realizing that the loudmouth is over there just talking about his latest vacation. Certainly not snubbing you, he's snubbing everybody because he's just doing that. And that's one thing. And I'll tie in that somebody once said to me long ago, he didn't say it to me, he said it to somebody who was asking about this when we were in college and at the open mics. He said, because people will get really disoriented when it's full of people talking, is that the people are listening to, you don't hear them. So the fact that it's a big, loud, crowded bar doesn't mean there aren't lots of people listening to you and enjoying your music. And you'll know that by the response you get when you finish playing the song. So, and some people say, well, you have to be confident. Well, that's hard to do at first. And confidence can come, first of all, again, like I said, confidence in your material. Know your material well. Know the practice. What I used to do, and I still do it with new songs that I have to perform, is I will practice while watching a ball game or watching a movie, and purposely to try to get through the songs and keep my concentration. Be able to lose my concentration, but still have the words memorized enough that they come out, and that the chords are memorized enough that I can actually autopilot my way through those distractions. I find that helps an awful lot. Or just looking out the window at traffic going by and that kind of stuff, that kind of stimulus. Helps build confidence in your material. Build confidence in yourself comes from not just the guy that saw you, that knows you and sees you on the street, and you don't know whether to believe him or not when he says, that was a great job last night. It's times when people you don't know, make a point of crossing over to the room and tell you they enjoyed your song, or they asked you about what song it was, or who wrote it, or that kind of stuff that shows them that A, they were listening, and B, they enjoyed your performance, and that it doesn't take many of those to make you want to get back to the open mics, or make you want to play for your family or whatever, and so that kind of stuff helps. Some people say if you're getting nervous and you're on stage, they say, focus on one person. That's what this person said. However, that's really more for performers who are used to performing. A lot of people who, if you're not used to performing, don't look at your audience, look over their heads. Focus on pillars in the room. Focus on the air conditioner. And the audience will think you're looking at audience members, but actually look beyond the audience members. Then you don't have to worry too much about their expressions on their faces and all that stuff. And you have to remember, when John Mayer goes out, he can't see anybody. I mean, they sit there and talk to the audience, but all you see is blackness and a lot of floodlights. And unless they're hanging on the edge of the stage, those people don't see anybody. I would love to play Carnegie Hall, because you don't see anybody when you're out there, and you get the audience response, but you might as well be playing in your bedroom, So it's when you're in the small spaces where the audience is readily there, every scratch of every itch is available to you. Focusing above them and over them is good until you get used to being the storyteller, which ties into another one. Tell the story. Remember the songs. Focus on the song and focus on the story that you're telling. And because most of the time we're singing, most songs are love songs in one way or another. So you're usually singing to somebody who's either not real or not really there. And if you can focus on that and focus on who you're telling the story to, other songs you do, and it's fun to sometimes make eye contact with the audience and another person if you're singing those kind of folk song stories where you can share this with your crowd. It can be fun, and audiences can appreciate that a lot. But that's something you want to build up to. Somebody says, look at yourself as an equal. I'm not exactly sure what they mean by that, but that's kind of a confidence thing as well. And again, if you're at an open mic, pay attention to the other performers. Pay attention to pay attention to the last concert you saw, or the next concert you go to, and see how many times the person missed a string or missed a note. How many times a big-time player. I was in Radio City, and I saw Jackson Browne forget the lyrics to Fountains of Sorrow and the chords. And he had to sit there and try to figure it out in front of the audience. And then he finally got it, and everybody applauded, and then he went on with the song. It's not the end of the world. It's if the roof's not going to cave in.
Can I interrupt you right there?
Sure.
When you say that, I think that wins way more than playing a song perfect front to back. If you mess it up, fix it in front of people and see how they're so forgiving. I think you're set for the night. I'd be really surprised if Jackson or anybody would go into the next song feeling anything but, what am I worried about? Look, they're with me like that. That's better, I think, than if he goes from the first song to the last note, perfection, and wonder, are you guys on my team? I think that's basically asking the audience, can I be myself and make a mistake? Are you going to be okay with it? When you get that flood of course we're okay with it, you're the best. then ironically, he probably didn't make a mistake for months.
And again, on the open mic scene or going to song festivals like we are going to be going to shortly, if you notice the other performers being less than perfect and how much you enjoy the performance and how much you're, more sympathetic or empathetic than not with that in that situation, or you don't even care about it. It goes by and you don't care. It's like, what's the big deal? I mean, it still happens. I had to play a big cocktail party. Fella, one of these old-fashioned New York City, like out of a 1940s movie kind of thing with people, with professors and all kinds of unusual people. The fellow was the North American editor of the Oxford English Dictionary and also a guitar player and guitar lover. And I was asked to be the entertainment for the night. He would do that in these giant pre-COVID parties he would have for at the holiday period. And so all of a sudden I'm sitting down and playing like 5 songs, surrounded by mainly strangers, and it became daunting. I got a little distracted and nervous energy took over a little bit. But, at the same time, I've been doing it enough to know that, well, I didn't do it the song the way I planned it to do it, but that's the way I did it tonight. And that, again, it's mainly about the story and the song. And even if you're playing a fingerstyle piece that's instrumental, then it is me. So it's not, it's not about me as much as it is the performance and the song. So I'm not that worried about it. Here's one that everybody always says: practice deep breathing. It really helps if you use the old techniques that they say to go to sleep, where you breathe in slowly for 8 beats. When your heart's going boom, 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 8 can go by really fast. So you want to try to do it kind of slower than your heartbeat.
Like when I'm with you.
8 heartbeats, but breathe in for 8 through your nose and breathe out through your mouth for 15. If you can make it go to 15. And like when the breath's gone, just keep relaxing and keep squeezing out the last little bit of breath. And do that. You don't want to do it too many times. You don't want to hyperventilate, but you just breathe in, and when you breathe out, try to drop your shoulders and relax when it's going out, and let it kind of melt some of the tension out. That will help. It'll also help get you ready to sing, because when nervous energy is in, you're breathing shallow, and then it's hard to really breathe in long enough to get an extended note. And even I have to remember that sometimes. And again, the old acting technique, you want to try to breathe in from your lower back. You want to fill your behind up like a balloon, as they say. You're imagining it going in down there and filling that up when the diaphragm opens up. Not all chest breathing, because this is where all your nervous energy is going to be. And then when you relax, you're kind of breathing through that and getting that out of you. And that does help. As long as you don't do it too many times and breathe too fast, you don't want to get lightheaded from it. But if you can do that a few times right before you go on, it can help. And even between songs. We think we have to just keep talking, and you hear people talk, and they'll talk really fast because they're really nervous, and they don't realize they're going this fast because their heart rate's so high. And you just want them to just slow down a little bit. And if you can remember that and don't feel like you have to speak every second like I'm doing right now, but even watching people on TV, Rich Eisen, whatever, people aren't afraid to pause and take a moment and collect their thoughts and before you start your next song and think about the pace of the song. And I used to bring a little metronome with me because I need to remind myself that if that metronome looked like it was going really slow, then I knew I was talking too fast and I was playing too fast, and just slow down. That's where most flubs come from. You're playing faster than you did in your bedroom. And so you're just not used to playing, getting to the note that fast. So that's also a sign. Nobody's going to care if you slow the song down a little bit in the middle of the song. If you can visit the room first, if you can actually be there before the audience is there, that helps. I love playing the same place. I used to run an open mic here at a bar because I started doing it specifically because I really wanted to get to know that room. And it became my room. And so when you're going to the same place over and over, That'll help too. By your fourth open mic at that same venue, you're going to feel much more comfortable in the space. It'll be far less distracting. You already have the places where you like to look out over the room if you want to do that. You already know where not to look to get blinded by the light, all those little things. You'll get used to the fact you don't hear nearly as well in that environment as you do in your living room or on stage, and it's disorientating at first, unless you're lucky enough to get a monitor, which we mainly don't. You can't rehearse enough in front of the mirror or in front of the television or whatever. Let's see what some of the other ones, because some of these are a little hokey, I think, but and maybe are more designed for public speaking. Like you said, I used to get very nervous and coming out as a director and having to speak to an audience about a play before it went on. I would find myself like getting the heart palpitations and the jittery hands and stuff. And it's like, where does that come from? I have no idea. That's where you'll picture them in your underwear or whatever those sayings are. For the most part, though, you get used to the fact that these are nice people who know you're a nice person too, and they're on your side. Now we're coming up to Martin Fest. It's coming up. So just a quick anecdote. I saw somebody sing for the very first time in front of other people in the song circle at Martin Fest at the old hotel, sitting next to a Grammy winner. And of course they were nervous, and of course their voice quivered a little bit, and they closed their eyes and they got through it, but the reception they got was so encouraging and heartwarming that they I don't know if they did another song that night or not, but they were back next year and they had a whole bunch of songs, and year after year they got more and more competent. And at the very first Martin Fest where you and I met, there was a little open mic set up, and you and I were one of the only people to actually play at the open mic. We'd just get up and sing some songs, but I saw a host of people sitting there with this envy on their face of they wanted to do it and they wanted to do it and they didn't do it. And by gum, didn't most of them do it? Like the next year, within 3 years, they were showing up with a homemade CD. They were, they got the bug of liking to share their music with their friends, and then that led them start sharing their music with with strangers and stuff. Oh yeah. And I'm sure you've known people like that too that are much more confident performers than when you first started playing with them.
Almost every single person that's in that situation, I don't know. Now you can't get rid of them. Like once they get over that, like this is so much fun. Like share it now. Like these, I'm one of them too, so I can say that with a straight face. But as soon as you recognize I can do it and it's fun, it's like now is it my turn again? And they go from like I remember you like last year when you couldn't be begged to come up here. And a couple of things I was thinking about while you were talking about your points. Number one, the thing about rehearsing. If you're playing a set and you're doing open mic or whatever you're doing and you're going up and playing songs for people and you've rehearsed them, you earned that opportunity not only to play comfortably. Like you can really sit there and say, wait a minute, I've played this song, this specific set now. I've worked at this. I've made sure this works dozens and dozens of times. You don't deserve to go and play in front of people and wonder, is this song going to sound okay? You know it does. So remind yourself, the whole you got this. If you're comfortable, you deserve to feel comfortable. And the other thing is true too. If you're going to go out and play, I know friends, and I won't name them, that want to come up and do a song with us, and they'll come up and do one that we've done before, and it sounds pretty good. So they get this feeling of being confident, and they go over the cliff. Well, then I could do the one that I just worked on yesterday. And man, you can't. And it's okay, and the crowd's forgiving, but it's extremely easy to see.
But you can't expect it. Yeah, you can't expect it to go very well. But
and I think that's worth mentioning on this podcast. But the same strength that means you should not expect to feel uncomfortable at stuff you've got totally worked out. If you don't have it worked out, what do you think? What do you think's going to happen when you recognize the crowd's very forgiving for a song you played 95% correctly? Does that mean the next song you can play 50% correctly and both you enjoy it and they enjoy it and you enjoy the reception? Of course not, and you might get lucky, But there are times it happens to me as well. I'll play 2 or 3 songs I'm really good at. I'll play one that I've wanted to play for weeks and I think it's ready, and it's not. And I can see the crowd sort of the etiquette in 2024, I think, is just to, go back to look at your phone. I don't think anybody wants to see, I saw that, but you go and you see the changing expression in somebody's face from really hopping along to the song you're doing to being like, oh, did something just like fall off the track?
Okay,
so
now you're going to start discouraging people. But yeah, because it does happen.
I do want to discourage people from thinking that you can just go there unprepared. You do have to prepare. That's all I really mean.
You just have to expect that it's not going to come out the way it's been coming out, because the performance energy is always different. Okay, as positive it can be. I mentioned earlier that you can put it in your gas tank and let it propel you forward. And those actors, one of the things that successful actors do, because some of them will tell you every single performance they're nervous going out. Others will say you get used to it if you're doing a bunch of performances, but that still comes from that confidence you have. I've been through this. I know the material. I know the material to the point that if I screw up, it's not a big deal. I can keep going, which is the other thing too, is to try to play through mistakes. Don't worry about mistakes. You see a zillion people. Another one like what we're talking about is a lot of people are intimidated by the fact that all of their friends are better guitar players than they are, or so they think. That they're just a simple strummer, or they're just... How many professionals have you seen, people on television, in concerts, usually they're singers more than they are guitarists, but get out there and just strum with their thumb, very simple, and sing a great song that everybody loves. So it doesn't have to be fancy. And that leads me to, if you're in the position where you're not used to this yet, and you're more worried about the nerves than not, then pick simple songs that you can strum. I spent years never finger picking in front of people. I finger picked and I learned Leo Kottke stuff, but I never played them in front of an audience with a microphone and plugged in. I was only a strummer for a long time. Even when I was in rock bands and stuff, I played with a pick. Until eventually there was a couple songs I could do, and there were a couple more songs, and then I started writing songs that were finger-picking songs and performing, and still to this day, my Chinatown, which is the song that I get requested more than any other. When I play with a band, I have a big long break in it that like a penny whistle and a mandolin and stuff are doing playing the melodies, but sometimes I do it by myself. But usually I don't play the break. I'm not going to set myself up to play a full verse instrumental finger picking in that song. I play a very simplified one and go on with the song. More to do with knowing myself that I'm going to probably trip up. So I don't always, but it's not that big a deal. But the simpler the song, the better when it comes to your first times performing. Pick songs you really like to do, that you like to sing, that have simple strumming patterns, unless all you do is finger pick, and then pick something that very inside and out, that's very simple finger picking, and enjoy performing. And then you can start trying the without a net, as David Crosby always liked to say, the more complicated songs.
Can I put you on the spot and ask you a personal question?
Absolutely not.
You and I we shared a text just yesterday about doing some more songs at Martin on Main this year, and you made a little joke that it wasn't perfect. If you and I sit down and play a song in front of people, and I make a slight mistake, does that A, make you worried, or B, make you feel like, he did it, I can do it too? Because I want to say something.
That's a good question. I think it depends on the circumstance, actually. But no, it doesn't make me worry. I don't think it does either one. That kind of thing is, thank God it's him, not me. But because, again, that's an ego thing. And this brings up something else. Stage fright primarily, traditional classic stage fright, the panic attack kind of version stage fright, is primarily an ego trip. And it's just like fear of flying. When I read this, a psychologist wrote about this, about fear of flying, you feel you are so special and so important that you're going to be the statistic, when the odds are just so minuscule. as they like to say, you have a better chance of being killed by a cow this year than dying in a plane crash or whatever those statistics are like. It is that really helped me get over when I was a fear of flying. I had 2 really bad landing experiences. And they probably weren't that bad, but they seemed bad to me as a young person, flying. And suddenly I got fear of flying. And after I read that article, I was like, you're right. And I kind of shamed myself about that. And the next flight, I got a window seat and I looked out the window the entire time and got over it. And performing is the same thing. It's like that fear of you're going to go out there and do the Dick Van Dyke and trip on the banana peel and break your guitar and your performance is going to be so disastrous. It's an ego trip, as it is, because it's like a reverse ego trip of you're going to make sure you go out there and fail to make your predictions going to come true, that you're going to go out there and fall flat in your face. But it's still a matter of, then everybody's going to look at me and say, look, that guy, you're still going to be the center of attention. It's much better to be the center of attention by singing a nice song that people like and it makes them stop talking, listen to you, and applaud because that was a great song. Even if right then they're talking about the song more than you, but eventually they're going to start coming up and saying, that was great. You did a great job. You played that song really well.
Something you mentioned a little while ago, there's one more point I want to make about being nervous and making a mistake. And you said, read the audience. When you're in the audience at an open mic and it's not your turn yet, watch the performer, watch the audience, see what's happening. And that person that's on stage before it was his turn or her turn, they were in the audience, and when they're done, they're going to go back to the audience. So everybody in the audience is going to get to be there again. If you make a mistake while you're the one playing, I guarantee you somebody who doesn't know you isn't elated at the fact that you messed up. They're like, thank God, it's okay to make a mistake. They're going to watch you make a mistake. They're going to watch you recover, and it's going to give somebody in the audience more confidence that they don't have to be perfect when they get up there. Conversely, if you watched open mic for an hour and you didn't get to go on until 10 p.m. and everybody who went before you played everything perfect, that can get in your head if you let it, but what's probably going to happen is you're going to see mistakes the whole time and recognize, why am I standing here psyching myself out thinking I've got to be perfect when I get up there? When you make your own mistake, you're showing someone else in the audience they don't have to raise an imaginary bar that far. And I know you're not going to make a mistake on purpose to be nice to someone, but your mistake is going to let someone else feel like they don't have to conquer as much.
Well, that's a very good point, particularly with open mics, because most of the people at open mic are going to be playing. But if you're not playing an open mic and you get a chance to play in some sort of variety show or whatever it is, the people there are usually like music. They like going to see music. I'd say most of the people that go to shows that I see are themselves performers who have their own bands or their own things or have been in the past. But certainly not everybody's a performer, but usually people who go to see music like music, so some of them play music, even if it's in a simple amateur way. So everybody's on your side. So knowing this doesn't always help because so much of it is illogical when you're thoroughly capable of doing what you do, like I said, as a trial lawyer, as a firefighter or whatever, but put a guitar in your hand and stick you in front of people, and then all of a sudden you're a nervous Nelly. We all can empathize. I only have so much sympathy for so long because get over it, because look around you and use your common sense about it. It is nervous. We saw people at Martin Fest this last year. First Martin Fest, very nervous. But by the end of the 3 nights, they were having a wonderful time. They couldn't wait to show somebody the next song, it's an unusually welcoming environment. But I think just about any kind of players, music gathering or festival you're going to go to is full of those kind of people. It'd be extremely encouraging and confidence building to go to one of those kind of events.
Now watch, you and I are going to make a big mistake on Martin's on Main and get laughed at.
Well, yeah, that's true. We're actually playing Martin's on Main this year. It's a completely different thing. For those who don't know, the Nazareth Chamber of Commerce doesn't exist anymore. They've been absorbed into the Bethlehem, Allentown, Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce. So the UMGF has nothing to do with Martin's on Main performance schedule this year. We were just asked to apply like everybody else did, and only last night did I hear suddenly, I guess I'm performing after all, and I asked Maury to join me. So we'll be doing a Martins and More performance at Martin on Main. Last year, I asked him to play with me again because these days we're not sure, is this the last Martin Fest? We've been doing this for 20 odd years, and we've never actually really done that together as a duo, and it went terribly. I had no voice, I think partially because of pollen and because of singing. No, I'm serious. I mean, I had lost my voice. We couldn't hear very well, and so we played some of our favorite songs, and I don't think that they came off as well as we had hoped, but we still had fun, and people liked it. It wasn't wasn't the end of the world. But that brings me to another important point: videotape yourself, or what do you want to call it? Use your camera, videotape your performances, and watch them as an educational tool. But also, you'll see that it wasn't nearly as horrible as you thought it was. And people, most of the time, don't even know you're nervous. You'll hear people say, God, I was so nervous. And you say, I would have never guessed.
Yeah.
I mean that, people speaking at a funeral or a wedding or whatever, after they'll say, oh, my God, I was so nervous. And you would be amazed at the people who say that. The fact that you feel nervous doesn't mean it shows. And if you videotape your performances all the way through the 80s and 90s, the moment I did it once with a band at the Living Room here in New York City in Manhattan, and I saw it and I realized, because I was playing with a bunch of guys who were real great fakers who couldn't rehearse very much, and I felt like it was a train wreck the entire time. Every song, I just like, oh my God. And I saw the video, and it was fine. I really like those videos now. And the performance was loose, but they were all good. Everybody's solos was good. It was, in the heat of the moment, it just felt disastrous. But I treat it like game film. I try to record every public performance I do now, at least a little bit, or ask my sister to, or whatever, just to have it and see how I did, what's going on, how I might want to change it, I didn't mean to do that, but I think that sounds better. I'm going to start doing that from now on, all those kind of things. If you can, have a friend videotape your performance so you can watch it in the safety of your own home, hate it at first, and then realize, it's not so bad after all. And hey, they actually applauded, and hey, I'm better than I thought I was, That's another tip I would throw out there. Record yourself at your performances.
And next week, we'll talk about what to do if you watch it and it's horrible.
Well, I said it's an educational tool, so.
Sure. And you said it's been 20 years or more of Martin Fest. Did you mean to say that number on purpose?
I did, actually, and you did pick it up. I'll just say that actually you and I met 22 years ago 2 weeks from now. 22 years ago. I know. We were both in grade school at the time.
I think I was going to afternoon kindergarten, so I couldn't stay the whole day, but had to get the bus.
I will make no jokes about short pants.
20 questions.
20 questions. It's time to play 20 questions, where one of us, either the smart guy, who is Maury, or the wise guy, who is Spoon, one of us is going to think up of a Martin guitar that is available for sale today out in the world, and the other gets 20 questions, try to guess what that guitar is. And I get 3, since apparently I am guessing, I get 3 questions of what model it might be that are part of the 20 questions. So, Maestro, have you settled on an instrument?
I chose this last week. I am ready.
Oh, you did you?
Don't let that be a clue. 20 questions on the clock, and go.
Is this guitar made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania?
Time out. We have it backwards. It's my turn to guess. You have to think of the guitar.
And this week, the wise guy, which is me, gets to think up a Martin guitar model that's available for sale, and the smart guy, which is Maury, gets to guess. Hopefully, he'll run out of questions before he gets to it. 20 questions are on the clock. Go.
Is this guitar made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Is it a double O?
Yes.
Wow, you really did it. Does it have a mahogany top?
No.
Does it have mahogany back and sides?
Yes.
Is it a 0018?
No. You're gonna hate yourself.
If I ask you for a model name and you find out it's discontinued, do I get my question back?
I suppose, but I think you have another question you could ask that would answer that question.
Is this guitar a limited edition?
I'll have to say no. I'll just give you a caveat. It was, but it isn't. That's a giveaway.
Is it the 00L Earth?
It is not.
It's a 00 made in Nazareth, and it's got mahogany back and sides, but it's not the 0018. Is it a 0015M?
No, that's two models.
You sure you're right?
Right as rain.
YouTubers, help me. Are you seeing this before I am?
You're gonna hate yourself.
I love myself. Does it have a V-neck?
Yes.
Does it have a sunburst?
In a manner of speaking.
I'm going to make sure of this before I spend my last one. Does it have a brother made of mango?
I would say a sibling relationship could be.
Is it a CEO 7?
Construed. It is a CEO 7. You asked me if it was a 00, and I said, yes.
Wow. But you go to a 00 as the name of it. Wow. Wow.
Congratulations. That was good detective work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to do the Earth because you mentioned it this morning, so I was going to get you on that. You mentioned it this morning, but I was thinking that was made in Navajo, but I got that confused with one of the earlier Getzels. But yeah, all right.
You confuse it with the 00L Nerf.
Should do a Nerf guitar, Martin Nerf guitar. People would buy them. Kids could whack each other with them. Come on, it'd be fun.
Well, all of you out there with the stage fright, I hope you weren't as scared as I was during that game of 20 questions. Spoon had me on the ropes, but I feel like I recovered. I feel like I was able to make a mistake, take a breath, picture him in my underwear, and everything worked out that I got, that I figured it out before 20 questions were up.
I'm hoping you have a pair of Homer Simpson's boxers, but...
Well, you'll never know.
So I would just like to say about everything we just talked about, that feeling that's preventing you from wanting to sit down at Martin Fest and play a song rather than just sit there and watch everybody else like you might have last year or the last time you were at Martin Fest, or that feeling that makes you never want to go back to an open mic again because of how horrible that experience was. It goes away. It totally gets better. So the fact that Laurence Olivier still had stage fright doesn't mean it's that kind of debilitating, miserable experience. So yeah, it's, the fact that you get a little nervous and you forgot the words when you don't normally forget the words or whatever, and you kick yourself when you're in private, it gets better, it gets easier, it doesn't get as bad, and you do get over it. So I totally encourage you to keep at it.
If anything we said today makes you wonder that you're not quite ready or not, don't let us discourage you. It's a total encouragement, and we certainly want you to walk away from this program thinking we gave you lots of reasons that you really should try it. It's so much fun, and I stand by what I said earlier. Once you get over the hump, it's going to be hard for anybody to keep you away. And it's such a great feeling leaving Martin Fest or anything like this, knowing, there's an opportunity to come back. Hopefully, anybody who comes to Martin Fest and uses that as an opportunity for their first time to play in front of people goes home. And many, many times between now and next July, you'll have opportunities to play in front of people at your local open mics or any situation like that. So if we did anything today to actually get you over the hump and go do it, I'll feel like it was an hour worth spending. And I hope you feel the same way, Spoon. If we could just make everybody who wants to sing and play, we've done our job.
I agree. I don't know I know we've got several episodes in the can, so not sure when this one's going to come out. But so if you're seeing this after Martin Fest, I'm sorry you missed it. And keep your eyes peeled on the unofficial Martin Guitar Forum or on onemans.com, places like that, for next year's festival. And if by any chance we rush this one out, I encourage you, it's coming up next weekend. It's July 25th, 26th, 27th. Though some of us are coming in as early as the 24th. Some of us are staying over until Tuesday. Some people make a whole vacation of it in that area in the Lehigh Valley. So you're not that far from Gettysburg, not that far from Hershey. There's plenty of stuff to do in the area other than Martin Fest. So if you can possibly do it, check out the unofficial Martin Guitar Forum. It's in other topics. You'll find the thread about it. And we would certainly encourage you to come and try out your first song circle if you've never been there.
And if this whole thing does air after Martin Fest, go to that same website, umgf.org, and find all the goodies from everybody that had all the fun. That's where all the pictures and videos and stories live. And the Spoon Martin Fest Journal of Adventure, is that what it's called?
That's what I call it, yeah. So looking forward to Spoon's Martin Fest Journal of Adventure. So I'm got to get my typing fingers on and remember my compression gloves since we play for hours and hours and hours. And I still have to do all that typing. So,
Well, this has been a good episode. Thank you again for the suggestion. From all of us at Martins and More, thanks for listening.
Hear you later.